Welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show with myself, Roy Shanahan, David Bugle and Neil Dobbs. And it's the weekend that the Ollie In, Ollie Out campaign has finally come to an end. And Manchester United have sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And Dave, well, the writing was on the wall a long, long time ago.
Yeah, well, it started 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 times in the last 3 years. But this one, there was just no going back. 7 league games, 5 defeats, 1 draw, 1 win. 2 of your worst performances at home against your 2 biggest rivals where you don't even lay a glove. That for me was enough. But international break came, and then yesterday, they arguably the worst of them all, and the writing was on the wall. Maguire getting said everything, and then even the way he said goodbye at the end, even he probably felt, I don't think there's any getting out of this now, and it's finally reached its end. And even still, they dragged the arse out of it a little bit as well. So, regardless of talking about Solskjaer himself, this is only one step of many steps to be taken in order to fix the ship that is Man United.
Yeah. Neil, as a Liverpool supporter yourself, you must be gutted.
Yeah. It's the end to a funny kind of, I don't know, all the memes will stop now, which is a shame. I used to look forward to a few of them. It's a crazy time, Roy. I haven't enjoyed it so much since the Moisey years when, David Moyes was a great kind of a pantomime villain, wasn't he really? But for Solskjaer, look, it's a sad state of affairs where the opposition managers are chanting for your manager to keep him in the job and to sign him up. And they're actually completely legitimate. There's no, it's banter, but they're serious. So it all comes to an end. All good things come to an end. And for Man United now, I guess we move on and we see what happens with the next chapter.
Yeah. Dave, as you said there beforehand, he has had results like this before, but he's always been lucky enough, I suppose, to get a couple of results after it. That we go back to the PSG game, but there's been so many games like that have kind of given him that lift again, and he's gone on a half-decent run again. But over his term, and for a long time now, Manchester United, and the very same thing again now this year, their target now is just getting 4th place. There hasn't been a real challenge for a long time. So this is not Manchester United, and things had to change.
Yeah, 40 defeats in his whole tenure, which is for United in 3 years, 40, that's over 10 a season. It's very un-United, it's shocking when you think about it.
Hi, Liam.
Liam
just threw it in our hi there, so we're going to say hello. Go on, fire away.
But, so it was inevitable, as we said, with the last 7. But, when the dust settles, unfortunately for him, a lot of people will be very sentimental about more what he did as a player and say how he steadied the ship. But ironically, it's very strange. I would counteract that to United fans going, steadying the ship, what do you mean? Because, he came second where he didn't really put a challenge to City. Mourinho did that, and Mourinho brought a couple of trophies. Van Gaal brought a couple of trophies, and they get battered. And it's kind of like, you can dress it up all you want, but I understand why you're a big fan of him. It'd be like if we had an ex-player who you never know we might have in a few years' time, let's be honest, and we might be very defensive of him and we'll give him every chance possible. And I completely understand. But when you look back in a few months' time and the dust settles, it'll be arguably the worst apart from Moyes. And even still, I wouldn't put him in the same bracket, or I wouldn't put Moyes in any bracket, because I don't think he got a fair shot, to be honest. And he was always going to be battered. So out of the three of them, in theory, not just by trophies, but just by the complete topsy-turviness of it all in the 3 years, and allegedly he steadied the ship, there was nothing steady about it at all. every time there was a chance, like it looked like it was calmer waters, it just got crazy again. And this was the epitome of it in the last 2 months. So it's not the be all and end all. There's still plenty to be done. To be honest, just a bit of a sidetrack. I think the biggest move of it all is who's going to replace Woodward. He's finished in January. And to be honest, he could be the common denominator. He's been there behind them all. And he's failed in bringing in 1 or 2 players famously over the last few years. So Solskjaer gone is one thing, but the real running of the club in the background could be just as important. So there's many different things that need to be done. Solskjaer gone and bringing in whoever it may be isn't going to be the one and only problem that needs to be fixed. So it's an interesting time for United, and it's something that fans need to be realistic about. To really reach the heights of taking on the Cities and Chelseas, the manager is not going to be the be all and end all. It's not going to be the one thing that's going to solve it all. It's how it's all run from the start, because they've been well backed. But is Woodward or whoever may take over the real brains of the operation for who they buy and who they don't buy? So, as I said, it's what's needed, but there's a few other little moving parts that need to be done right in order for this to really change and go in the direction United fans want.
Yeah. When they talk about steady the ship, though, Dave, Van Gaal may have won an FA Cup, but at that stage, Manchester United weren't getting into the Champions League. And so that's, I think, more so what Manchester United fans would be looking at, that they've got themselves into the Champions League again. Because, I think if you look at some of the other clubs, winning an FA Cup is great. And for Manchester United, it's great. Of course, for any club, it's great to win trophies. But for Manchester United and Liverpool and Man City, you have to be in the Champions League if you want to be able to get the big players in, or you go back into the pack a little bit like Arsenal. So steadying the ship, I think, talking about Champions League. But maybe. You talk about steadying the ship as in getting them back and putting the challenge in, you're right, they didn't do that at all. And that's still not there, and as far away as they were previously. Okay, Johnny Bourne says, aside from Zidane, there's a very low-key list, Neil, to replace him. Worrying. Yeah. I'm going to look at this here. The favourite at 5-1 is Zinedine Zidane. Michael Carrick is 4-1 favourite. Zidane is 5-1. You've got Brendan Rodgers, you've got Darren Fletcher, you've got Eric Den Haag, Pochettino, Junior Nagelsmann, Gareth Southgate, and even Cristiano Ronaldo gets on the list there. I might be wrong there. I think Brendan Rodgers might be 7-2. But when you look at those, I suppose, managers that they have there, there's nothing elite about a lot of those. Brendan Rodgers, I don't see elite about Brendan Rodgers. I'm still looking to see why Brendan Rodgers is pinned up there. Yes, he did a decent job with Liverpool, but he didn't win at him. Yes, he won stuff at Celtic, but he should have. And in fairness, he did well with Leicester, but now things are starting to turn around a little bit. So I still haven't seen the Brendan Rodgers, he's going to bring United forward and win Champions Leagues and win leagues. With Michael Carrick, Neil, what the hell?
Yeah, the Carrick scenario, I think, is absolute nonsense. And I'll tell you is why. Like, this is like giving Mike Phelan the reins, when Ferguson retired. He's been there now. Mike Phelan has actually been there through a couple of kind of failed tenures now. Carrick then came in, he was kind of Solskjaer's voice. I look, he's been there through this last 3-year period with Solskjaer, so I definitely wouldn't go down that road. He's completely new. This is like a Lampard scenario where, you might give them a chance once in a while, but look, you've just done it with Solskjaer, so you wouldn't do it with Carrick. He's no coaching pedigree, he's no experience. For him to go from a number 2 or a number 3, I don't know what his full position is at United, or a backroom coach, to being the main guy after the way this has ended with Solskjaer would be a huge mistake. What they need is someone to go in there now and kind of whip them into shape. And judging by yesterday's game, I know it's easy to say, but a Tuchel type of character that goes in there has no respect for names, has no respect for who you are and what you do. Like any dressing room with Cristiano Ronaldo in it and Fernandes in it, you need to go in there and you need to have bigger balls than them. You need to go in there and show them who's boss. Tuchel did it at Chelsea day 1, minute 1, and it was very, very noticeable. So Man United need to pick the right guy. Now, we've been saying on the show now weeks, it's not necessarily about getting rid of Solskjaer. I think they could have even waited longer if they'd have wanted. It doesn't matter now. They know they're replacing him. It's getting that right guy in. And at the moment, there's only a few premium managers out there in Europe, and none of them are on that list. Like Zidane, he inherited a very good squad. He brought them to great stuff in Europe. Does he rebuild a club? Could he rebuild United? He'd have their respect, but
does he need to rebuild United, or does he just need to get them playing?
Well, he needs to get them playing. He needs to get them fighting. All the highlights I watched of the Watford game, Roy. I mean, let's be honest. They were outfought, outran, out-muscled, out-tackled. Like, this is Watford you're looking at. You know what I mean? If you can't match a team for the very basics of football, which is just running and putting into graft, you're never going to win a match. I don't care how many Ronaldos you have on the field. So, yeah, I mean, look, they need a guy to go in there and completely wipe the floor with them, reset them, and get them back doing what they've, what they should be doing to teams like Watford.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, there is a rebuild, in my opinion, and this is just purely to be a devil's advocate to burst a few bubbles, because there's about 6 or 7 players who either started or came off the bench in their second worst performance ever against Liverpool 3 years ago, and Mourinho got the sack, and they're still playing. So, yeah, there is, because the problem was there 3 years ago under a manager who, as Neil said, had balls. And he wasn't the right one. Exactly what you're saying is what Mourinho was before he went to United. And let's face it, most of the fans would have said the same. And they're still there. So you're damn right. Rashford, Pogba, Lindelof, Matic, Martial. I know they're not kind of main starters, but they're still there. And the next Mr. Quotes yesterday, Mr. De Gea, and he came back yesterday with that god-awful save. He's the king of saving with his feet, but for some reason he went across with his right foot and crossed his legs. It was just very strange. And goalkeepers union, come at me in a minute, the Joshua King free header, where he does the splits up in the air and double punches it back into trouble, where it wasn't that hard of a shot. He will never, in a month of Sundays, in 200 shots a day in training, ever catch or save a ball like that. Why do you do your training the way you do? I will never know, because he never in a month of Sundays would do that. It's very weird. And then he comes out afterwards, didn't really want to say sorry to Solskjaer, which was obvious, but then had the balls to come out today, or maybe his PR people come out today and said legend or whatever, who knows, because that's been blown out of the water now. All tweets are just so hollow now. But there is a rebuild, 100%, because I would not trust half of them, not by a million miles. And some of them are there the last time, and they're there now. And I asked a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't quite get a clear answer. I do not see this world-class squad that a lot of people seem to think it's there. There is world-class players there, but squad, in my opinion, no.
I'm curious to why you put, and I know why you put the rest of the players, why you put Rashford in with the rest of those players.
Because 3 years ago, he was god-awful against Liverpool, and he's been god-awful in my trust of my mates who are United fans who never stopped moaning about him for years. I like him, but a lot of fans just have no time. I think he makes poor decisions. He's got bags of skill, but even once or twice yesterday, I was like, why'd you do that? Like, you did the hard work. You put the ball through a guy's legs and whatever. But then you've got other players as well who need to buck up and get consistent. You know, I'm just listing off the players that were there 3 years ago who were shocking. And watch the game again. God awful. And no surprise he got the bullet straight after, because they'd no choice, because you can't play like that against your rivals. And they're after starting to do it again for the last month, of which there's 6, and there could even be a few more. Wham Matt and a few. They're still there, earning a great living.
Eric Boy.
Let's be Eric Boy. But he's on the bench, even though the defence is shocking. Harry Maguire, let's be honest, his best spell for United was when he was injured. Because when he was injured, then everyone realised he's actually our best defender. But his evidence in the last month or two, even is he even that good? Luke Shaw's gone back to the way Mourinho was slagging him. You know, AWB, I'm not convinced. Like, I'm really not. So
what I see, Dave, is, and I've seen it, you've seen it with Duffy for Brighton, where all of a sudden we all couldn't believe how poor he had got over a period of time from being really good. I watched Harry Maguire last year. Harry Maguire was solid last year. Whatever has gone on with him, and there's no doubt he's not performing. There is no doubt about that. He's not performing.
Since the Euros.
I'm in total agreement with you with Wan-Bissaka this year. He's the exact same. He's not performing. Luke Shaw, not performing. Lindelof yesterday, he might as well be just a shadow. He didn't want to tackle. He's afraid to give away penalties. But there's something wrong completely there. And I would like to see a lot of these players. Now, there's some players, Pogba, absolutely. I've no time for Pogba. But there's certain players there that I would say, yes, get rid of them straight away. I mean, if Juan Mata's there and he's not being used, why have him there? Just say goodbye. He's done brilliant for us. And Van de Beek comes on. In fairness, Van de Beek came on yesterday and showed the only bit of quality that the midfield had.
The irony is that he is the last guy to score for Solskjaer. But in fairness, he's the unofficial mascot for the whole tenure. You know, a guy who did not become a bad player at United. He just didn't become a player for whatever reason. And then when he plays yesterday, as you said, he was lively and he got the goal and you thought they were going to come back. And it just literally is the perfect bookend to his tenure there, because as soon as he arrived, it was just game over. Like, which makes me wonder, how is it run? Is he a player that he even wanted, or is this who United could get? You know.
And that's I'll come back to you now, second, Neil, because Dave touched on Woodward and that he might be a problem to have to sort out. But I actually think that Woodward was a problem with the players that he was bringing in. Was there communication with the managers? Were they bringing these players in? It seemed to me that players were being just thrown in on top of them. Mourinho said as much. I'm only the coach, which means he had no say in what players were coming in. So maybe if
he's
they
the common denominator out of it all. He's there the whole time through across, and that's what I'm saying. Like, Solskjaer being changed is one thing, but his role or his appointment could be way more important than any manager that comes in, because if they don't feel, let's face it, every manager, including Ferguson, they always say it, we're only as good as our players. So if you can't get in the right recruitment or the right people who's going to get you the right players, it doesn't matter who's there.
Yeah. Now, Neil, I'll come to you now. Liam has a couple of points he wanted to put across there. Come on. Solskjaer should have been gone a long time ago, but you can't blame it on him. It's also the players. It's 100%. For Neil, for David De Gea to come out and say, as a professional footballer who's been at the club, how long has he been there? Could he be there nearly 10 years? He's very close to it anyhow. For him to come out and say that we don't know how to play with or without the ball, for professional footballers not to have an idea of how to play, that says to me that, firstly, you're not trying, because if you don't agree with what way the manager is playing, that doesn't mean you don't know how to go about your business if you don't agree with them. And they looked, and at one stage, Neil, I seen them midfield of Matic and McTominay playing in between Lindelof and Maguire, having the ball while the two of them were either side of him and no one in midfield. And they've done that on 3 occasions in the first half. And I'm like, what is going on here? Where is there's no organisation. This is not professional football organisation. This organisation was Sunday League organisation. It was out the door bad.
Yeah, but like, right, you look at when Bruno Fernandes came into United, and you know he kind of lit a bit of litmus, and all of a sudden they went on a run, and he changed them, and everything was since Bruno come in. That showed progression, and that showed a team that did know what they were doing. They were a counter-attacking team. They had a style of play. They stuck to it very rigidly. Fred and McTominay did their job, and everyone else got on with their job. So it's not like for De Gea to come out and say they didn't know what they're doing with the ball and without the ball. The blueprint for their training sessions surely hasn't changed that much in the space of a year, where this time last year they were going in second, but they were on a good run and playing well. And now all of a sudden, they've forgotten how to be professionals, how to train, how to instruct each other.
Do you not think they've changed their style a bit? Do you not think they've gone from being a counter-attacking side to trying to be a team who are on the front foot, but just haven't been able to do that?
Yeah, and they also don't have the personnel to do it. Like, Roy, we've said it for months now about Fred and McTominay not being a playmaking midfield. We've compared them to Chelsea with Jorginho and Kante. We've compared them to Liverpool with Henderson, Fabinho, Thiago. They've playmaking and defensive midfielders, people that can get it stuck in, do a job going forward and a job going back. Fred and McTominay's problem is they only have one gear, and it's defensive blocking. They don't have the ability, they don't have the passing, and they don't have that, they don't have that style to be able to open up a game and keep possession. So I do agree with you. Man United seem to be trying to get to that next level, coupled with the fact they brought Ronaldo in. Then you have Fernandes, who's after dropping off in form. Maguire's dropped off in form. Luke Shaw's dropped off in form. So now all of a sudden you have a group of 5 or 6 players that are senior players and aren't playing well. They're not playing to their capabilities. Their game plan has gone out the window. They're leaking goals like a sieve. The whole thing is just a shambles, but it's been coming weeks. Like, it really has been coming weeks. I remember Gary Neville saying, 4 weeks ago, that Man United haven't played anyone in the league whatsoever up to the point that they played Liverpool, and their next 6 games are proper games, and he was worried about them. And look, we could all see it coming, but I don't think I seen that shambles of a first half maybe coming to that detriment where it was like a team of strangers were out on the field. There's no way you could prepare a team that badly to go out in the field and play like that. So in my opinion, I just think that the players have they've spoken with their feet and they've decided, look, we're getting this guy the sack. We're done. We're finished. And it happens. I remember Chelsea did it, went through 2 cycles where they stopped playing for a manager. And then the minute the manager hit the door, Chelsea went back into first gear again. Eden Hazard down tools. So
we've seen it before. Respect, though, Neil. Is that you looking at a manager there and there's decisions? Because I've seen decisions from Solskjaer where substitutions, like we'll talk about the Europa League final. He didn't make a substitution until the 100th minute. At that stage, Unai Emery had made 5 changes and refreshed his side and looked a better side throughout that Champions League. Even at the weekend, they talked about it against Watford, where he had the choice to bring on Tellez or Dalot, chasing the game. And he brought Dalot on, who's not a lateral left full and not an attacking really left full. So there's little decisions that he's always, not even little, they're big decisions that he doesn't make. So maybe the players look at him and go, I don't have great faith here. And then also, as I said the week before, they don't have that fear factor. So Fernandes knows he's playing. Wan-Bissaka knows he's playing. Maguire knows he's playing. So if you're playing week in, week out and you're not getting dropped, what's to be fearful about?
There's nothing to be fearful about. I would reckon Ronaldo going into that dressing room has absolutely swung an element of, an element of who's the big guy in the dressing room. I don't think Solskjaer is equipped, experienced enough, or has the tactical nous to deal with a guy like Ronaldo. He's world class. He demands, and by his body language, the way he storms off the pitch, the way he is at Portugal. Like, he runs Portugal almost like an assistant manager, and I think he's too big of a character. I don't ever think Fernandes was. I think Fernandes bought into the Solskjaer project from word go and hit the ground running. But definitely something has changed, and the players, as I said, spoke with their feet yesterday by literally down in tools, so much that they made themselves look embarrassing on the field, and that was run right away through 11. So, it doesn't surprise me the way it ended up like that.
Yeah, just 2 very quick things, because Roy's bang on the money there with the fear factor. Like, I'm not being hypercritical here, but he high-fives Harry Maguire as he's walking off the pitch. A manager wouldn't even look at him because he got sent off to be doing something stupid, and there he is sticking his hand out. I wouldn't even looked at him. He's your club captain. Do you know what I mean?
But anyway, Ferguson would have stormed down that tunnel. He wouldn't even out to the fans, would he?
He'll be back in a minute. Bang. You'd be afraid to go off. But anyway, just a very quick, and it's just a very, because we don't know everything, but it's what we see when we're watching the games, and 2 separate matches with 2 completely different scenarios, and Liverpool Arsenal, and a bit of a spat that Arteta and Klopp had. Like, fair play to Arteta. I didn't think he had it in him, and he was being really pulled back. And half the line comes in behind Klopp, which is no surprise because of what they do from time to time. But all of a sudden, the 2 of them are fiery. The crowd go bananas, and Liverpool react because it's like, the gaffer's at it, so we better be at it, 3 pictures, 3 different zoom-ins on the 3 managers at United. Solskjaer, which is pretty much what he does, he has the arms folded and he puts the chin in under the coat once in a while. Mike Phelan was literally sat back with his arms folded, and that was on more than one occasion, it's like. And then Carrick had an earpiece staring at a monitor. And that's what I seen at yesterday's game of Watford. And that's and I'm talking about Arsenal, not just Liverpool here. But that's what we see, and that's what we're looking at. And it's like, where's the fire? Where's the passion? And exactly what you said, where's the fear factor? And that's been lacking for so long. And it's like, he harps on about the old days. And it's a bit like Liverpool in the late 90s, early 2000s. The boot room's dead. It's time to move on and rewrite the script. Solskjaer, you will never, ever lace the man's boots because you don't have it in you to be anywhere like him, and you hark on about it, but it's gone. You have to rewrite history and start a new chapter at United, and Carrick has to go just as quick, and Phelan has to go just as quick, and it's somebody with no links, and don't bring in any ex-player to come in with him and starting a new chapter and a new era with a new manager and a new regime. And that's just my experience from 15, 20 years ago. The boot room's dead, and start something afresh, because never did a 2 contrasting matches look so obvious yesterday.
Yeah. Liam just put up there, yes, the best manager available is Zidane at the moment. Manchester United are looking for Spurs manager and PSG manager. Both are taken. I don't know if they'd be looking for Pochettino. Obviously, Conte would have been probably the ideal man. Maybe not the style, but definitely the personality that you would have needed. Neil, when you look at the managers there, like Gareth Southgate wouldn't fill me with confidence. Nagelsmann and who's the other fella? Ten Hag. Do they
So,
have it in them? You know, Nagelsmann I can't see leaving anyhow. Ten Hag
Yeah.
would, but would he be able to cope with those personalities? They talked in the Manchester United on the page. They announced that Solskjaer had left the job. They said that Michael Carrick would be taken over until an interim manager came in. Neil, what's that about? Why sack Solskjaer and not have a plan?
Yeah, I think they're in big trouble now, Roy. Like, what do you actually do now? So you're trusting the boot room, as Dave said there. You're trusting someone, the safe pair of hands to get you through a couple of weeks, couple of months, who knows, right? I mean, this is how Solskjaer ended up in the bloody job. And then, the famous Rio Ferdinand sign him up after a great run of results. But this is actually a serious worry if you're a Man United fan right now. Ten Hag is a decent bet, but is it too soon for him to be that next guy? You look at Bayern, the way they got Nagelsmann, they had him lined up 2 to 3 years beforehand. They identified the character down the road. Chelsea hired and fired, and I think they may have got a little lucky with Tuchel, because I don't know would he have been their target a year ago, but he landed in their lap. Conte will never know whether United would have taken a chance on him. But this is an appointment that they have to get right. And yeah, I'm looking through, as you're saying, even through the list of names. Brendan Rodgers is a capable manager and knows the league, but he's a massive gamble. It's a massive gamble the way Benitez is at Everton, because he's an ex-Liverpool manager, which means he will get no honeymoon period. He would have to hit the ground running and be literally class from the start, because the fans won't want to listen. Brendan used to love coming out and waxing lyrical at the end of a game. Oh, we Joe did this and that for me today. Man United supporters don't want to hear that crap.
They've heard it from Solskjaer over the last few years, Neil.
They have, but I think it's easier coming from Ollie than it is coming from Brendan Rodgers. It's just the character that the path that Brendan Rodgers has taken. I don't know if that buys you time in the Manchester United hot seat. So what do they do? Do they take another gamble, with, say, Ten Hag, or they go into Italy and they come out with some guy that, a Conte-esque type of guy? I don't know, but there's definitely no front runner, which is worrying. Pochettino, who they originally wanted, now is belly deep in PSG. He ain't going anywhere. Conte is gone. You've Klopp, you've Guardiola, you've Tuchel, and Nagelsmann at Bayern. So, I mean, where do you go? They're not prepared for this. They are not prepared for this, and it clearly shows. They just felt, listen, get rid of him now. That'll appease people for a while, and let's work on plan B. What the hell their plan B is going to be. But I'll tell you this much, Roy. I was just thinking to myself, David Moyes, when Dave was saying there about Mike Phelan and Carrick and all being there, David Moyes got massive criticism for getting rid of the old United boot room when he went into Old Trafford. And they reckon that was one of the reasons why he didn't hit the ground running, was because he brought all his own staff. He insisted on it. So if you bring in a Ten Hag or some of these guys, how many of these lads are going to be hanging around in the background? Do you need to clear them out? Because again, that's a big question.
Yeah, well, I think they need to get rid of them, because, as you said, as Dave said, the body language from them sitting on the bench doesn't inspire, and it really is poor. Dave,
just a quick one, boys.
Liam has just thrown in that there, Dave. Hold on, you can throw that in a second. Brendan Rodgers would be a brilliant manager, in my opinion, but I think Rodgers wouldn't take the offer. I think he would, and I'm a bit nervous that actually this interim manager is to get someone till the summer, and maybe someone like Rodgers steps in then, and it doesn't seem to be jumping ship halfway through or something like that. Gianpiero Gasparini is the Atalanta manager, and Atalanta have been, I suppose, a revelation for European football and Italian football. He's been mentioned, Dave, albeit on the outside of the betting. If you were looking for someone, if you had that job to get a manager in for Manchester United, be it a tough one, who do you think you'd go for?
Just to put it out there, because I don't know, but Sky have gone on record, not that means a lot, but according to their source, and it's on TV, so that Pochettino is number one and Ten Hag is number two. In whoever their sources' opinions are, who they're after. No mention of who the interim is, or who's going to be, but they're the one and two. And other rumours that are coming out, I'd say this is shit storing, but allegedly Ronaldo's come out and put his candidate forward of Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique has been asked, and he said it's April Fool's Day. In other words, no chance. So he's been asked, obviously, but I don't know whether it could be just, as I said, fish and chip paper. I don't know if Ronaldo said it, but at the same time, we can speculate because of his theatrics behind the pitch. Then everyone's saying he's a wannabe assistant manager anyway. So that's where it is at the minute. Who you go for, whoever it is, no matter who they are, will not have time. Look at today, a half time at Spurs. They were already booing. A half time in Conte's second match, and they're booing a half time. And I don't agree with this, by the way, but whoever comes in is not going to have time. He needs to hit the ground running. They can do basic, solidify the team to make them look a bit sharper and tighter, but he needs to get it going and fast, and they'll turn on him just as quick. Like Solskjaer got an incredible amount of time, probably because of being an ex-player. Like I'd say if it had been anyone, even the Mourinho's and Magalhaes wouldn't have got the 3 years with the record that he had personally. So whoever it is has got a lot of quick fixes to do fast, and then hopefully buy himself the time to start building the team. Neil's put it up on the side there. Mancini's a decent effort. Like obviously, he won the Euros last year. Kind of more than likely should get over the line in the playoffs to get into the World Cup. But his status is quite high at the moment as well. But it is lacking. There's no denying. It could be
if
a
it
head
came
scratcher.
down to the two of them, Dave, Enrique or Mancini, who would you take?
I would say, but Mancini's a bit similar to, you'd probably say Enrique because he might have a bit more time, because Mancini could be similar to Rodgers. Would the fans have trust in him, considering he's been at Man City? Interesting.
I have one here for you. Hold on. Ross is after coming in with one here. Blanc has been touted
I forgot,
as
Larry White.
manager.
Yeah, he's over in Qatar. He's had a lot of plaudits over the years for being a half-decent coach and a manager, and he's done a half-decent job at different ones. Kind of got a bit tarnished at France. Go watch a documentary. I'm not getting into it now, but let's just say he was willing to get in on a system where they had to share the let's just say the facial ratio on the pitch for France national team, and he was recorded. So that'll come up as soon as he gets the gig, if he gets it. So being in Qatar might be a good thing for him. So that'll come up, and that'll be. And watch it on Netflix is very good. It's fascinating. But yeah, he's been mentioned as well. So Larry White potentially. I only seen a goal that he scored yesterday. But to be honest, Pochettino would probably jump at the chance. I don't think he's enjoying himself at PSG. I'm not saying I'm
style of football.
It could
Again,
completely
Enrique,
change. It could completely change United. It could completely change United with the players he has. Enrique could be brilliant as well, but I would query whether he'd have the heart. That's my personal opinion. I don't think a lot of managers do have it now. I think it's very much they'll come in for the 2 or 3 years, get their gig, and get out. And I think he'd be the same. And I think this is the problem with United at the moment. Like Liverpool are lucky that you have a manager who wants to stick around and put in the years. And Guardiola's putting in the years at City. A lot of managers don't want to now. And I think out of all of them, he'd be definitely a model for the 2 or 3 year gig as well. I just think he'd get in, get out, and maybe rob a title or rob a trophy or two and get out while the going's good. That'd be my fear why I wouldn't be jumping at him. And I'm not saying that because I fear him. That's just what I believe as a neutral.
Give us a name, so who is it?
I'll go with Poch just purely because I think he'd have the bit between his teeth, because you need to have somebody in there. I'd say he'll have hunger. He'll be angry. He'll want to prove a point. He got.
Do you think he'd leave?
Maybe.
End of the season,
well, Messi could go at the end of the year back to Barca. Mbappe's probably going to go. It could be a tough team to manage to keep them happy. You know what I mean? There you go.
Poch, happier man with a long-term project at United. He's probably more likely to do that, isn't he?
Because let's be honest, like he got probably Spurs as far as you could get until Spurs had to start being like City and Chelsea and start splashing the cash, which Levy just physically can't do. And obviously the ground was being built. So I think he maximised Spurs out as best as possible. And his time was done, because the next level was to start going after the big players and shelling out 50s and 100 millions, and it never happened. So I think he has it in him, personally, and I genuinely think he'd come back with a point to prove. And that's why, as if I've been a United fan, that's who I'd want in. Somebody who I think would have that spark and anger to want to prove their point that they are one of the best around. And he seems to tick most of them boxes, while the others seem to be a gig. It's just a gig.
Yeah. United are foolish. Conte was available last month. I do think that the style of play is a bit of a turn off on the Conte thing. I do think he's the right personality, though. And now it's too late to get him, but I would definitely get Brendan Rodgers in for United. He would do a fantastic job, no doubt about it. That's from Ed Woodward. Oh, no, Liam Slater. Only messing, Liam. Only messing. I'm not really excited about Brendan Rodgers. Enrique would excite me, but I get and I understand the reason why you would think he wouldn't maybe be fully hearted like Pochettino. Pochettino probably would be a good shout, but he's not going to leave. But then again, Blanc might step in that short term, a bit like, remember Chelsea had it when they won the Champions League with, what's the midfielder's name?
Di Matteo. Yeah.
Di Matteo, yeah.
Yeah, so
but
that
then
could be something like that.
He goes on a mad run. Do you put him in? Because Di Matteo got the gig. See, this is why I'm a bit nervous, even though I'm not a United fan. What if this person somehow gets them going again and you're between a rock and a hard place? Because Solskjaer literally put them behind the 8 ball. And
but didn't they just get rid of Di Matteo, though? Even though he won the Champions League.
No, he got it, but he was sacked within a few games.
Maybe you have to be that savage if you want the right man.
Yeah.
Zidane would be great. Manchester United, well, they have been bad, and no Pochettino, so not a fan of Pochettino there. Zidane would be great, but I think, Neil, the biggest problem. Now you're taking the piss. The biggest problem would be the language barrier and getting that across. Zidane was in Real Madrid. He was a hero at Real Madrid as a player.
Yeah.
He knew the place inside out. He went in. He was settled before he took the job at Real Madrid. So he goes in there with the players. He knows how. And he's definitely a good manager, because you don't go on and win 3 Champions Leagues unless you're a good manager. But Zidane looks like one of those players that needs to be comfortable. And I'm not sure if going to the Premier League and being with Manchester United would be comfortable for him.
Also, look at Zidane, Roy. You imagine Zidane's philosophy, because of the player he was and the way he played football. He went in with Modric and Kroos basically in their prime, and he built a team around the two of them. He trusted them, their style of football and their possession style of football. He'd Galacticos in the team. You'd Benzema, you'd Ronaldo, you'd Bale, you'd all these guys there. He was able to handle the egos, absolutely no problem. So that takes a box. But, you're going into Man United and you look at the midfielder selection that he has in there. So that might look at that straight off the bat and go, I either get backed to get X, Y, or Z as a type of player, or I wouldn't be interested. But for me, how much of a project would Zidane see it as? A year, 2 years, 3 years? Man United need to get motoring again, as you're saying, stable in the Champions League, and then start to challenge for titles. It's not going to be this year. You know, as Dave is saying, you've still got a bit of rebuilding there to do. Is Zidane going to be a guy that's going to drag that team from the 2nd, 3rd, 4th place position? And actually, Man United, in my opinion, still have not challenged for a title despite finishing 2nd. They were never in the race. Yeah. And I always look back to Liverpool when Klopp came in. There were 2 years before you kind of thought they're nearly playing that type of football that can deliver a title. Then they went so close, and then the year after that was their year. So it's not a kind of a 1-2 year project. You have to compete for the league first and actually be in the race. It's like a mentality thing that you have to kind of get yourself set, and then you go one better and you do it. Now, Chelsea might prove us wrong on that one this year under Tuchel, but it's still a huge difference to leading the pack and winning the Premier League than it is to just finishing, like Brendan Rodgers, Leicester, or, finishing in 3rd or 4th. Completely different mentality.
Yeah, okay. Now, Bawana's been going crazy here, and I'm going to give him the shout here. He said Keane would be great, Scholes would be great, so we'll just leave them to the side. But he had said a few little things there. They need new leadership in the background, I suppose he's talking about. He's definitely right there. They have no identity. He says no offense, no defense. They're terrible. these are general things that it's been, when you talk about Ronaldo, getting Ronaldo in and losing 5-0, they
Is
won't
this
make the
David De Gea?
Champions. Yeah, they won't make the Champions League. How many rebuilding they're going to have to do, and I suppose the biggest one here. It's been 10 years. Dave, are Manchester United a big club, as in not in money, but in the Premier League as a team challenging now?
As a team challenging for the very top for the title, no, but it'll be a long time before I say anything other than United are still arguably the biggest club, not just in England, but in the world. They are monstrous. The numbers are saying exactly why as well. The irony is they're in a kind of a healthy position. That's the whole surprise of it all. They've spent a shitload of money, more than anyone else, even though the other two are the money bags and they're the scourge of the league. United have spent the most money since Fergie's gone, so that's nonsense in a weird way. Now, United is a little different because it's the revenue that they generate, because that's how big they are. And only Liverpool are slowly but surely starting to creep up on them, but that's because they're following a similar model to the god-awful, shocking owners that they have, which is Glazers, even though they're putting it all back. I know there's a debt, and I get all that, lads, and it's gas. Like, it's all Solskjaer's fault for a week or two, and then they'll go back to moaning about the Glazers again, because it's got nothing to do with them at the moment, even though they are a big problem. But they're still they're a massive club, and they'll always be a massive club for from now to eternity. But as regards challenging title, absolutely not. But at the same time, clever, patience within 2 or 3 seasons, because there's a few pieces of the puzzle there, and that's why, just going back to what Neil said about Chelsea, like, pretty much all the pieces were there. It's just Lampard didn't put them together, but Tuchel unjumbled them and put them back in, added 1 or 2 this year. But they were as good as there. But the other guy just had, because he had a couple of lads on the bench or out of the squad who are now their best players. So that's the difference that Tuchel made. He put the puzzle together. And that's what whoever needs to come in, they need to have a look around and move it around a little bit, make a few changes to just, pardon the pun, steady the ship. But then get a bit of patience, because it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take a bit of time and a bit of patience. They are juggernauts that are City, now Chelsea, and slightly underneath them at the moment is Liverpool. But straight away, aim for West Ham. You're not a million miles off them. Get them, get rid of them, put them in your rear view mirror, and then chip away. Get at Liverpool, then go on. You're not a million miles away, and that's a good thing about it. And that's what the fans need to be positive about, but very patient, because it's not easy. It really isn't easy. Like, City bought 1 player this year. Yes, it's for a lot of money, 100 million, but United probably have to buy 3 or 4. But you mightn't get them in the one window. It's near on impossible, especially when you probably want to buy somebody in defence, somebody in midfield, somebody up top. It is the way it is. But no, let's not get one thing wrong here. United are still the biggest team in the Premier League by a country mile. But as regards challenging title, once again, no. But not a million miles away.
Bowen has got the bit between his teeth here. You can't lose 5-0 to Liverpool. The fans pay heavy price for seats, and they don't play well. That's a big thing, Neil, isn't it? That the expectations at the club, you can't keep not challenging for a league, as Manchester United fans have voiced. Now, I think the Manchester United fans, Neil, have been very patient over this time, and very patient with Solskjaer as well. Maybe not so Moyes, as Dave said, but that was always going to happen no matter who it was there after the Ferguson thing. They were always going to get a bit upset straight away that they weren't winning things. And I think everyone's seen that they weren't going to win things straight away. Interested here. Wait until Pep and Klopp leave. Then be ready. They won't win the league title while they are there, Neil.
It's a fair point.
Do you know what? I tell you, Roy, you look at Liverpool now, they might have 3 titles in the bag only for Pep. You remember Pep when he was in Spain? Mourinho might have had another 2 titles only for Pep's Barcelona, and Dortmund might have an extra title if he wasn't in bloody Munich. So listen, Pep is an elite manager. He's elitely backed, and he is back to the absolute hill. Just look at the money that the guy spent on defenders that don't even play anymore. He is elite, and the way he gets his team playing is a joy to watch, and you can't argue with that. Klopp is a different animal. He's a kind of an extremely driven, motivated, he gets a machine going, and once the momentum gathers, he's a different type of manager. And now you have Tuchel, who's come out of not out of nowhere. He was good with Paris Saint-Germain, but I don't think people realised till he kind of turned the fortunes at Chelsea. So, you know what? It wouldn't be a bad idea if the Glazers are thinking to themselves, right, Klopp has 2 years left in his contract now, and Pep, know with Pep he'll stay until he's good and ready to go. But maybe that's the time to plan, is when these guys step aside and they have to do a kind of changing of the guard as well, and that might be the perfect time then to try and overcome that chasing pack and get up there, because there's no doubt about it. You put Pep or Klopp in charge of most of the top 5 or 6 teams, they're going to improve hugely. But elite managers are a dying breed at the moment, and that's why we can't nail down a position for United. There's
Dave,
not enough of them to go around.
what Neil's saying there, absolutely bang on. But when you look at the players that are brought in under his reign, and you look at the players that are brought under Klopp, and they look like Pep players and they look like Klopp players.
Exactly.
Manchester United, they don't look like they're the manager's players.
No, you coach what we give you. While I don't know the exact runnings, but I'd be shocked if they don't have meetings with this transfer team. And as far as I know, I don't know the exact runnings of it, but I used to be a bit more aware of it, a few articles. But Klopp would have consistent meetings with Edwards and the type of players he wants, and he would give him, here's what I want, and they'd scour Europe, and they'd come back and go, here's 3 options. Right, let's start looking, and then go, right, he's number 1, he's number 2, he's number 3. Blah, 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 blah. That makes sense, doesn't it? But with United, many a time I can't fail to remember. I'm failing to remember now, but there's been 2 or 3 nailed on transfers, and then they never happened. I can't remember exactly over a few years. And the Sancho one, I don't believe for a month of Sundays that Solskjaer wanted him. He was just somebody that they could get for the last 2 years. I doubt if he was screaming for it. Van de Beek obviously mustn't have been because for whatever reason he didn't play him. Obviously Ronaldo, I'd say that was just an opportunity that came about, and who wouldn't take it? So that's a put that one to one side. Varane, I can see why. That's another big enough name where I don't think Solskjaer would have a problem. But before that, I'd say Solskjaer had a bit of a say in the Maguire window when they brought in 1 or 2. I'd say he would have been thereabouts in a few of them. So, but not all of them by the looks of it. And certainly Mourinho had no say. He practically came out and said the players he wanted, and he never got. So that's for sure. And then Van Gaal was a bit up and down. He got a bit of a backing, but then they kind of pulled the brakes in it when Falcao and Di Maria didn't quite work out. Then they kind of started to get a bit iffy because obviously Martial came in, which was, I think Van Gaal wanted him anyway. But then after that, then it got a bit dodgy. But that's the marriage that needs to come. And I'm not trying to be clever, but yeah, who comes in for Woodward or how the club in the background is just as important as who the new manager is going to be, because it's no surprise.
Neil just makes a good point in their side chat there that Tuchel didn't take those players or didn't bring those players in. Did they just happen to be Tuchel players, or is Tuchel just that good?
Well, potentially you have to work with what you have, and he had a bloody good squad as we seen. Plus, let's face it, he brought Rudiger out from the shadows, and who's an ex-German international and our current German international. He would know him inside out. He obviously knows who Havertz is, and he knows who Werner is, Pulisic. It's very German based, so he knows them quite well, and he probably would have studied a few of them in the hope that he would love to get his hands on a few of them in a previous life and other managers. So I wouldn't necessarily say they were rubber stamp Tuchel players, but he would have been very attuned to a lot of them without a shadow of a doubt. But there's no denying they're playing his way, and that's the way it should be. Like, here's how I want to play. You play my way, or you don't play at all. Guardiola has the streak. You mightn't see it too much. Now you see, obviously we seen it when he was putting the number 2 in front of the twin against Liverpool. But he has it in him. Klopp certainly has it in him. And mark my words, so does Tuchel. And that's what every manager needs. Like, here's they're still the boss. Like, here's how I want to play. If you don't play that way, you don't play. Mount is being in and out of the side, but he's starting to come back into it a hell of a lot more because he knows what he has to do now. It's not as simple as, I don't care who you are, you're not doing what I'm asking you. There's the bench. And that's what needs to happen, whoever comes in for United. If these players perform the way they have been, somebody has to get splinters on their arse, because, as I said, they've been getting away with it. But I think with Tuchel, it was a nice marriage of the two. A lot of the pieces are there, and then obviously he came in and put not the iron fist, but he then led the way they should be led.
Yeah. Neil, I'm going to finish off on this one. Seems being a Manchester United show. They need players to take the front office. Keane, Scholes, Giggs, Ferdinand, Rooney, Van Nistelrooy. Why are they not using these players? Oh, Dave's jumping at the bit here, Dave. Go on, Dave, jump in.
Rio Ferdinand said he would be an excellent sporting director yesterday. Excellent, bar none. Jake Humphrey says, Grant, who would you get as the new Man United manager? Do you know what his response was? 2 words. I don't know. On TV, answer. Lads. Go find it. It's there. That was his answer. So I'm sorry, Buana, not a danger.
Okay. Neil, should any of those players or any of the ex-players, should they be part of it? Ajax do it an awful lot, don't they?
Yeah, Van der Sar, isn't he, director at Ajax? Yeah. So look,
come back to United.
You still Peter Cech, I think, did it for a while as well. There's a couple of them that all hang around. But look, it's a skill position, Roy. And I know even reading the forums, Michael Edwards is finishing, I think, with Liverpool at the end of the year. He's the one they call a magician for all the mad deals that he pulled off that just seem a little bit too good to be true, all the way back to the Coutinho deal that kind of built the team. So it is a worry, and it's something I think fans are more aware of now, that the guy at the very, very top is very culpable for the fact of the type of player you bring in, the relationship he has with the manager, and almost his vision of what he sees 2 to 3 years down the road. And the prime example of that is you're bringing in players, as we're saying, Tuchel players or Klopp players or Pep players. There's no point when you're turning a manager over every year or 2 years, and you're identifying targets a year down the line for the wrong manager. It should be like an assembly line where you have 2 of every position and you're identifying a plan B and a plan C. So there's a massive amount of responsibility in that position. And I think Edwards gets highlighted because of the ex-players that he has mentioned there, in particular Neville, in particular Scholes, that he's not happy how Woodward runs the club because he's not looking down. Like now, Man United are after sacking a manager and we don't think they have any clue who they're going to replace him with. That's actually unforgivable. That is your director's job, to have someone in mind to bring into that position. And look at the managers that have gone through the merry-go-round already this season. Generally, when one stepped out, there was another one already coming through the back door, ready to start. And Man United, I think, are the only ones that are going with the interim manager. So terrible planning. And as Dave's alluded earlier on, right from the top of the club, if you don't have that right, it filters all the way down. And again, maybe the buck stops with the manager on the field, but he needs help from above to bring in the right type of player and the right structure at the club. And it has to be a 3 to 5 year plan, not something that, was thought up of over a dinner.
Okay.
Woodward,
go on, finish off, Dave.
I think Woodward is finished in January, apparently. I don't know the exact month, but I think he's been trying to
hopefully it started January.
Yeah, he wanted to get away from this. He didn't want to sack him. That he didn't want to be involved, and he didn't want that to be the last thing he had to do. And maybe he was just trying to have a handy few months. But yeah, it was the last thing on his mind. And I think even the whole 24 hours, and they had a meeting last night, and then nothing was decided. And now this interim caretaker, it definitely, as you said there, the plan is it was never in his in mind. And obviously, he gave him the new contract in the summer, so I think he was hoping for him to do a good enough job so that he can ride off into the sunset and get away with it, because obviously he hasn't put a plan into place for whoever's coming in behind him.
Yeah, well, the plan seems to be from Manchester United not to have a plan and to have someone who deals with transfers to leave at the start of a transfer window. It seems a little bit of a shambles, doesn't it?
And you have players going out of contract now at the end of the year, and Pogba and Lingard, who you probably could have easily got 100 million for the two of them, know?
Pogba could have gone ages ago. Yeah, they could have got money for him a while ago. Listen, Neil, I'm going to go with you on the first one because we've only got about 6 minutes or so to go. I'm going to ask you one question and Dave, you another question. Neil, of the top 3, City, Chelsea and Liverpool, who were you most impressed with over the weekend?
I'm going to say Chelsea's performance against Leicester. I thought Liverpool versus Arsenal, they were excellent in the second half, but it was the way that Chelsea kept Leicester at an arm's length for literally 90 minutes. They almost tied with them, and that was away from home. You think Leicester would have rattled them, and I mean, they nullified them. It reminded me of the way Rafa Benitez used to go into Europe and just choke a team to death and leave them passed out on the floor, win 1-0 and say thanks very much. Chelsea made it look easy. And when you make it look that easy in away to a place like Leicester, even in the second half, Leicester brought on Maddison, Vardy, or Iniacho, they changed the whole thing. They didn't break stride at Chelsea. They stuck to their system and they picked them off. Very, very impressive the way that they did it.
Dave, of the 3 new bosses that took the job, Gerrard, Dean Smith, and Eddie Howe, kind of seems he was at home watching the game, although he did get his training sessions in. Who were you the most impressive through them?
A mixture between Norwich and Villa, purely because they got the win. Norwich probably because it's 2 wins in a row now, so maybe they're finding something. So I'll give them that. Villa, it was an ugly game. Now they finished strong, but it was a bit of an ugly game. There wasn't much. It was a very tight affair. Got tense. Obviously, it's a first game, so you just want to win. So it's a massive win for them, and obviously they celebrate accordingly. But maybe Norwich a little bit because, all of a sudden they're just 3 points off the relegation and we had them written off. And Dean Smith, never know, he might do it. So out of it, I'll just give him by a short nose, but because it looked like a slightly better performance. But the Villa one was very scrappy, but it doesn't matter. You just get that win, get the monkey, especially 5 in a row defeats. So just get the monkey off your back and just try and get the machine up the table. So you're not talking about relegation. You're just talking about the rebuild more so than looking over your shoulder. Newcastle, look, it doesn't matter. It's going to take probably till
Eddie Howe football.
Yeah, in a way, conceded loads of goals, scored loads. Even Joe Linton was remotely impressive at times, and he actually deserved his goal. I'll give him that, of all people. But look, I think we're going to have to wait till, say, a couple of weeks into January for Newcastle, because it's obvious they're going to get new players in. They need them, because if this is all they have till the end of the year, I'd be very worried for them. So, the rumour mill every day, when you look at the collection of rumours, there's 3 or 4 different players, and they're going to come in. There's no 2 ways about it. So Newcastle should, hopefully, for their sake, start to improve, but not for another few weeks, because I'd say it could be a bit scrappy from now till then. But just how much of a gap are they going to have? That's the interesting one.
Yep. Okay, that's an interesting show tonight. Dave, thanks very much. Neil, thanks very much. And to everyone who contributed tonight and watched, thanks very much again. We'll be back here 8 o'clock next